an unconstitutional hoax.
Aloha and welcome to the absolute technical shit show of the year from Trust and Verify. That's right. Look, no video, all completely animated characters, but I think we're still going to be able to produce this show. But we're going to definitely try. But before we can even get to that, I got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, the man down under. How's it going, brother?
Good, James. Good. Pleasure to be with you once again. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for sharing the show out. If you did, if you didn't, well, then so long, sucker. This is actually probably a good show not to share out, I think, just because of the shit we've had to deal with. You know, we both, like James and I both kind of have a, you know, like a don't quit kind of attitude. Like if something goes wrong or we don't just let it, you know, we'd try to find a solution, but both of us were really close on this show. It's like, oh man, fuck this. Like every single program didn't work. The cameras aren't working properly. We couldn't get Skype to load. It's good fun. So, this is sure to be a sensational program. Thank you for joining us. James, how are you? So you're recovering yesterday? What happened? What happened yesterday, James?
Oh, just a family celebration. Nothing to talk about. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Nothing to talk about. Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if you would, join with me in wishing our friend James a happy birthday for yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't want anyone to know, so I'm just going to blow it up.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Well, that's revenge for last year when you did it to me. So you get what you get. Yeah, thank you for joining us. I wanted to. I've brought some things for your contemplation tonight, James. A couple of items I think the audience might benefit from hearing you speak about. The impeachment stuff, right? You've probably been talking about impeachment all weekend. Is that right?
Fair to say, yeah.
Okay. But I thought rather than focus on, what the lawyers were saying, I want to sort of draw it out more and think about what's going to happen in the months to come and at the election, like what kind of effect this might have on people, on voters. Because we've discussed these kinds of things before, like, impeachment is a very, very historically unpopular thing to do. We're getting polls now. I see CNN and Huffington Post and all of the regular liberal rags talking about, the Fox News viewers for the first time, they're in favor of kicking the guy out of office now. And I'm just like,
what?
I find it hard to believe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, but let's just say, let's take it on face value, right? That's true. Let's just say, let's give them that point. I still have to question, like, with all polls, it's not necessarily the amount of people isn't as important as where those people are, right?
Correct.
So if we're taking these polls from, majority like New York or California or other very liberal areas, you'll find it's because there's so much more people concentrated in those areas, it doesn't really matter. It matters more in those purple districts and those swinging districts that the Democrats picked up in 2018, right? That's where the important opinions are.
Right.
So, I don't think we can read too much into it. I did say to my, on my show on Wednesday night that I would spend the weekend going over the impeachment stuff. And it was a struggle. I've got to tell you, like watching clips and reading shit. I did my best though, but one moment for me stood out above all the others. Can I show you this and get a comment on this? You've probably seen this already, but I think this to me just brings it all into stark focus. Like this makes everything plainly obvious, no question, no argument, no discussion. Like, this is it when it comes to what the Democrats are doing.
In unprecedented fashion, the president ordered the entire executive branch of the United States of America to categorically refuse and completely obstruct the House's impeachment investigation.
Now, see, I've had trouble having these discussions like off air with more Democrat-minded people than myself, and they talk about what I don't like, James, and you can speak to this. The use of the term obstruction of justice, when you dive into what Schiff's actually referring to here, it's all wallpaper, it's all gift wrap. They say their argument is the fact that the president and the White House went to court to block certain documents being released or certain things coming out. They say that is an obstruction of justice, and to me, that's like an assault on logic, because using the court system. Right, like, let's not pretend that people haven't used the court system or manipulated the court system for their own benefit since there were courts, like thousands of years worth of this behavior. But if you have a legal avenue available to you to block something or to appeal something or to cause an injunction or whatever, that is the justice system. That is right. That is literally the justice. Blocking somebody from using the court, that would be an obstruction of justice. So the very term itself that they use, it's obstruction of justice because he went to the court to block us getting paperwork. No. That's his legal right to do it. That's what justice is, right? Like, what am I missing here? Am I missing something?
No, you're not missing anything. In fact, it's even worse than the way that. All right, so let me start here, because you said it several times, but it's not your fault that you said it. You said obstruction of justice. What they're actually charging him with is obstruction of Congress, because they do not have enough evidence for an obstruction of justice charge. So it's even worse. But see, it's word games. It's word salad. Yep. And this is what you and I point out more than anybody else on the internet, is that, see, this is why they keep using phraseology over and over and over again until people on our side of the coin start using improper language to agree, just to move the ball along. So I'm not hammering you for this, but I'm going to hammer Rudy Giuliani right now for this. Is that Rudy Giuliani, even because of the fake news, literally changed the president's word when he said himself on national television, he said, look, the president said, do me a favor. The president did not say that. The president said, do us a favor. So see, this is stuff that's very important, language. That's what they're trying to do here. You're absolutely right, however. See, what you're about to see this week, in my opinion, is a complete and utter attack on all fronts. The president's legal team in the impeachment trial, as well as Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani has started a podcast, and on that podcast, he's going to bring live witnesses onto his YouTube channel, his podcast. The American people are going to see from a multiple-pronged attack from the president's supporters, making sure that we're calling these fuckers out on all levels. Now, what's interesting to me is that, and I want to make something else clear. You guys know I like to make fun of myself. And I say shit like, let me pat myself on the back for being right. The president listens to me. Rudy Giuliani listens to me. Look, it's all fun and games. That's it. I do not think for a million years that fucking Rudy Giuliani has somehow figured out who little old me is out here on the internet. He's a fucking constitutional guy. He's a lawyer. But he's said the same things that I've said, which is he's brought up Marbury versus Madison. I've explained before why this case is so important. So let me give you a thought experiment for everybody, and let's pretend that the Supreme Court precedence of Marbury versus Madison doesn't exist. Okay? Let's take that away. What you would have in today's situation is a Congress trying to impeach the president, and even if the Senate impeached him, who would remove him from office? Can anybody answer that question? Of course not. Because everybody just says, oh, well, the guy would just leave? Oh, people would stop listening to him? Who? Which people? Who would stop listening to him? There's no enforcement mechanism, which is what the entire case rests upon, where Supreme Court Justice Marshall decided in the Marbury versus Madison case was that, hey, there has to be somebody that's the referee, the arbiter between these branches of government. So That's what created and established the fact that the SCOTUS has the right to be the arbiter for constitutional laws and play the referee between these two branches of government, or else nothing gets done. You see, so that's where we're at right now. The House is trying to force through some bullshit, and the courts and the president are going to hammer them for it. And the American people are sick of it. And people want to say, oh, look, the polls are up. Bullshit. You want to know what polls matter? Ratings. You know what matters about the ratings? For the Schiff impeachment hearing, I'll give you an example. The Brett Kavanaugh hearings, remember the whole slanderous bullshit? A 40 million share. 40 million Americans watched that. You want to know what day one of the shit show was? 11 million. Oh, day two? Right. Oh, yeah, down to 8 million. People are tuning out. They do not give a fuck about these people. Period.
Scandal fatigue, James.
Yeah.
Scandal fatigue. After 3 years of it, of just being beaten over the head constantly, moving from one scandal to the next, you can understand why people I'm a political junkie. I admit it. Hello, my name's Boogie Bumper, and I've been a political junkie for 15 years. Right. Hi, Boogie. I've been sober for a week. I haven't paid attention to the impeachment stuff. And I like what you said about the wordplay too, because you're so right. And I'm kicking myself that I didn't pick up on it sooner. Actually, to be fair, that's probably a symptom of not paying enough attention to it. It's the same thing with like illegal immigrants, right? Well, are they immigrants? Are they migrants? Are they illegals? It's the constant shifting of terms is meant to confuse. It's meant to get people on the wrong side of the argument. It's meant to infuse people with an emotional context that ought not be there, right? So when you say obstruction of justice, it sounds very legal. It sounds like somebody's giving their finger to the court. It sounds like they're shredding documents in the middle of the night. But when you say obstruction of Congress, it's like, well, that could be a vote. You know what I mean? That could be a vote that people want to pass in Congress. It's a very different thing. I want to show you this, sticking with Adam Schiff for now. This for me is, I hope I'm in the right place here, because we're the fuck-ups before the show started really threw us off a bit. So hopefully this video is in the right place. Like the big reveal from Adam Schiff, right?
The House did not take this extraordinary step lightly. As we will discuss, impeachment exists for cases in which the conduct of the president rises beyond mere policy disputes to be decided otherwise and without urgency at the ballot box. Instead, we are here today to consider a much more grave matter, and that is an attempt to use the powers of the presidency to cheat in an election. For precisely this reason, the president's misconduct cannot be decided at the ballot box. For we cannot be assured that the vote will be fairly won.
How you think that plays? How do you think that plays with Americans right there? Hey guys, everybody in this audience, everybody that ever listens to this podcast, you're all dumb as fuck, and we can't trust you to vote the way that you should. How do you think that plays? That actually adds votes to Donald Trump, in my opinion, from an independence. Because the Democrats don't matter. We've talked about that ad nauseum. The Democrats themselves as a group, they don't matter. They represent 30% of the population, 33 if you want to say it. Okay, whatever. But their votes aren't going to change and don't matter to the election. What matters is the independents and the walkaways from the Democrat Party that are saying, fuck these people. That's what matters. And they're pushing votes our way. I love it. I love the fact that they're so, in their own heads, you want to say? That they're so, their hubris is so great that they think that they can just go into the Senate, not only disrespect every single American, both sides of the aisle, not only disrespect them, disrespect the senators in the Senate chamber, and think that this shit's gonna fly. That somehow they're gonna win this vote. I mean, look, the whole purpose here is what you and I have told. I don't even know, long time ago. Now, all of us on every show I've ever been on have all said the same thing. This is about them trying to put on the screen. In fact, right here on this very Trust and Verify show last week, we prefaced that what they were going to do was sell you this bullshit, this exact same line. This is all about the Senate. This is all about trying to hold the House. They know they're not going to win the presidency.
Yeah. I thought, I've heard the worst rhetoric in politics in the last, say, 5 years, right? I thought I've heard it all now. Whether it was in the Brexit campaign where they said if you vote for Brexit, pensioners are going to be thrown out of hospital and dying in the streets. Politicians were saying shit like this.
Right.
Whether it was, Donald Trump represents an existential threat to gay people, like he's going to throw them in camps and stuff. Like people were saying shit like that.
Yep.
What you just heard there from Adam Schiff, like, is legitimately the worst thing I've heard. Like, not even close.
Yep.
That is horrifying. Like, I can't even. Sorry to be a meme. I just can't even.
No, think about it. I know that you've got more to say on just I can't even. I mean, if you've ever heard any like totalitarian or dictator speak, that's where it starts right there. Literally saying, yeah, you know what? We just can't trust our population to make the right thing. I mean, that could have been a speech given in Africa, South Africa, Russia, Venezuela. I mean, you pick your poison. Fucking Il Duce would have fucking made a speech like that.
Yeah, and it forecasts what's to come, right? So we're going to get into like the Senate races and stuff. We're going to get into the motivations behind this. But for me, that forecasts what to come. To me, it looks like they expect to lose 2020, and they're going to keep this conversation going throughout the entirety of the Donald Trump presidency, if it's 2 terms as well. Like they are writing the narrative, guys, for post 2020 right now in this Senate hearing. They're saying, hey, we need to kick the guy. Isn't it a convenient, nice little wrap up too? If we don't remove him from office now, then the 2020 election is illegitimate.
Yep.
Like, oh, how convenient.
How convenient.
You're not leaving us with any options then, are you? And the charge is so ridiculous just on face value. I'm amazed that there's even one person going along with it.
Yep.
He was cheating. He's cheating in the 2020 election. Pardon me. Excuse me, Mr. Schiff. Joe Biden isn't even the nominee yet.
Yep.
Right? So how does this, what do you mean he's already cheated in the 2020 election?
This is
It
another
insane to me.
I think you're hitting on another point where language matters, right? This is just like the obstruction of justice bullshit. Is that they are trying, and they in many cases have succeeded. I want everybody to wake up to this fact. Look, what the president asked for was investigations into corruption and specifically into a company called Burisma. At no point did he say investigate Joe Biden. At no point. But yet every single news station, multimedia platform, including many on the right, are using that language saying, look, it's not a problem for him to ask for an investigation into Joe Biden. Hey, he didn't ask for a fucking investigation into Joe Biden. How about we start there? See, this is, again, another point that they are doing. It's incredible that he never even asked for that at all. He wanted investigations into corruption. Not our fault Joe Biden's corrupt. And by the very fact that they're trying to steer the language that he's trying to get an investigation into Biden is them admitting Joe Biden's corrupt in Ukraine.
Unreal, isn't it? Absolutely unreal. Here's something that you'll enjoy, James. Here's something that's going to back up your point to say that people are sick of this stuff. And it's going to come from one of the most unlikely sources. I present to you Salon, ladies and gentlemen. Have a look at this. Have a look at this. The debunked Russian influence nonsense is infantilizing liberals. From Salon. This is going to be a show of people rubbing their eyes and catching their breath. The populist wave in politics on both sides of the Atlantic is a defensive reaction against the technocratic neoliberal revolution from above that has been carried out in the last half century by national managerial elites. Are you hearing this? This is Salon. Over the last half century, the weakening or destruction by neoliberal policymakers of the intermediary institutions of the mid-20th century democratic pluralism, I know it's a bit word salady, particularly labor unions, has deprived much of the working class of effective voice or agency in government, the economy, and culture. Right? And I would say, yes, like that was a big, big, big factor all the way back in 2016. Obviously so, considering that the blue wall states flipped from blue to red for the first time in 30 years. off the back of somebody who was running on what, ladies and gentlemen? Bring the jobs back. The working class, speaking to working class aspirations in his messaging. Populist demagogues can channel the legitimate grievances of many working class voters. So now we are accepting that the grievances of the working class, James, are in fact legitimate. Isn't this amazing from Salon? Like I feel like giving them a round of applause.
Right.
You're going to see that they don't, get it 100% right according to us, but it's a long way. It's a long way to the right way, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
They cannot create a stable, institutionalized alternative to overclass-dominated neoliberalism. Only a new democratic pluralism that compels managerial elites to share power with the multiracial, religiously pluralistic working class in the economy, politics, and the culture can end the cycle of oscillation between oppressive technocracy and destructive populism. I know, it's very word salad. Yep. But let me go down to this. Worst of all, the myth that Russia swung the 2016 US presidential election from Clinton to Trump, the myth, James, that's a quote,
yep,
and endlessly repeated comparisons of current events to the new rise of the Nazis in Germany's Weimar Republic provide the managerial overclasses in Atlantic democracies with excuses to increase their near monopoly of political, economic, and media power by freezing out political challenges and censoring dissident media. I can't believe it. Salon, ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves a round of applause.
I think Salon is bucking to get Fox News to repost this article. I think that's what's going on here. That's fucking Salon. That is unbelievable. I think I could point down to, though, why would Salon write an article like this? Is that I want to remind everybody exactly what I was about to say. Remember what happened to the Bernie Bros in 2016? They got pissed off, butthurt at the Democrats, and attacked the Democrats relentlessly. And I think you're seeing the exact same thing start now. They already see the writing on the wall. The Democrats are trying to fuck Sanders. And it's their smart move, to be honest with you. I mean, perfectly honest. For us, I think it's better if Sanders wins. I want Bernie Sanders to be the nominee for the Democrats, because I think at that point there will no longer be any more discussion on whether or not the Americans want communism or don't want communism, because it will be decided in that election. That's how these things happen, and I think that's the very reason why they can't afford to make him the candidate.
Yeah, I think, obviously I'm not a fan of Bernie Sanders' politics, right? But one thing that you'll hear, like if we're being fair, okay, one thing that you'll hear from people often is that, well, I disagree with everything he does politically, but at least he means it. Have you heard that? Like he really believes it. Yeah. Unlike other politicians who might say things from time to time and then flip-flop just to catch a wave of some kind, like just to get in popular opinion. People say with Sanders that he genuinely believes it, and he's been on record for a long time saying the same things. So I think we can all agree that most of the people in the audience, including ourselves, James, are not fans of Bernie Sanders' far-left, economic agenda. But I think, and I could be wrong here, but my suspicion is that I think that the Democrat establishment and the DNC probably fear Bernie Sanders more than they do Donald Trump. And the reasoning behind that is, if Bernie Sanders wins the nomination, he is going to really, really, really piss off the entirety of the Democrat Party donor class.
Mm.
Right? The big money that rolls behind the Democrat Party do not want Bernie Sanders, because this is going to be the guy. This is the guy who's going to burn it all down, right?
Yeah.
They are afraid. We read an article last week, remember, in Davos, they were saying we fear Bernie Sanders. Like, this is the globalist institution of Davos. Yep. We fear what Bernie Sanders. Look at what MSNBC and CNN have been doing to Sanders, trying to boost Elizabeth Warren up. See, I think that all the endorsements last week, have you read those stories? Everybody's endorsing Elizabeth Warren now.
No,
all
I
of
didn't
the different
see that,
groups.
But I don't.
They were rolling in. Oh, every day, James. Every day, another group.
She's another one, though. She's like she's worse than Sanders, though, because she's a socialist that is like she's one of those lick your finger and stick your finger up and see which way the wind's blowing. Like I think worse.
I think she's being presented as the Sanders, but she's not. She is the pro-establishment, but they're trying to put her in there as the anti-establishment, right? They're trying to mold that figure.
Yeah.
Whereas Sanders is the real Sanders, and Warren is the fake Sanders. So vote for Elizabeth Warren. You know, she's a woman. Blah blah blah. Anything to keep Sanders out of the limelight. And we're going to get to polls later on. Sanders, for the first time, I think, has now got a clear lead in the polls. So it's backfiring on them. Yeah. We'll get to that later on. I want to show you this. This is a short clip from Fareed Zakaria. Just to keep going on this theme, right? What we were talking about. Where does all of this stuff come from? Have a listen to this. This is Fareed talking. I don't know what you think about Fareed Zakaria. For me, he can sometimes be good and then sometimes be way off rails. You know what I mean?
I don't think he's smart enough. I think the worst thing about Fareed here is always the same thing for me, is he can do the news, but he can't interpret it. Like, I've never seen him accurately analyze anything.
Right. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. So let's have a look.
Donald Trump's speech here went over relatively well. That's partly because Davos is a conclave of businessmen, and they like Trump's pro-business message. But mostly, the president's reception was a testament to the fact that he and what he represents are no longer unusual or exceptional. Look around the world, and you'll see Trump and Trumpism have become normalized.
But I would just say, like, I love the framing constantly, right? You know, if you know what these people are doing, it's very obvious. So, Trump and Trumpism has become normalized, and it's like, no, it's always been normal. Like, just because you've presented that globalism is the only way forward, like just because you've presented, yielding to the neoliberal elites and globalism is the only thing that everybody can do, doesn't mean that all of this stuff just went away, right? It doesn't mean that people's feelings on this topic just went away, but they're acting like, this is a brand new thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's garbage.
Yep.
Davos was once the place where...
Well, the point you just made was that, it not only is it garbage, but this is how they try to sell you that they're the normal, that they're in the mainstream, that this is what everybody should be believing all around the world, and that it's been that way. We have progressed up to this high level, and now suddenly there's a toxin in the system, and now it's been normalized into the body politic. See, that's how they try to get people to see that we need to just modify a little bit towards these other people. It's all bullshit.
Yep. And, for 20, 30 years, essentially the corporate mainstream media, ladies and gentlemen, has existed to make you feel isolated in your views. They're trying to make you think that you are the only person who thinks the way you do. That's why all of your ideas and your opinions about politics and whatnot and culture and society, whatever it is, economics, that's why these are the terms that are used. Fringe, extremist, not ordinary, abnormal, right? Stuff like that. When there is legitimately millions and millions and millions and millions of people who agree with you, the point of this is to make you feel isolated and alone, because what do people who are isolated and alone do, James? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Exactly. And that's exactly how most of us felt. I mean, look, I can't say this enough. I put this out there in the ether well before the election, right? I literally said right before the election, if Hillary Clinton wins, we're packing everybody up and going to the hills. Like, that's how alone and isolated almost all of the Trump voters felt. That's why they showed up in numbers you wouldn't believe to win that election. Because we finally got to where, you know what? We have nothing else to lose. If we don't try to take this country back now, we're fucked. So let's go.
Yep. I want to play a little bit more of Fareed here because it's going to feed into our next item.
Countries clamored to demonstrate their commitment to opening up their economies and societies. After all, these forces were producing global growth and lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty.
Yes, but again, this is the point of contention, right? global growth lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty, yes, at your expense, at the expense of the Western countries,
right,
at the expense of the working class in the Western countries, right?
Yep.
Like, when we look at economic markers to look at the health of an economy, GDP is one way of doing it, right? And it's a blunt instrument. It's not very detailed. GDP doesn't tell the entirety of the story, though, because with big growth in GDP, it's usually growth at the top, right? It's the overall value of the economy, but that doesn't go into how somebody might have had their wages stagnate for the last 12 or 14 or 16 years, depending on which industry they're in, and that was the case before 2016, and in many cases still the case, right? Yeah. So when these globalist institutions like CNN talk about, everybody was growing and everybody was getting out of poverty. It's like, yeah, but there's a trade-off, and they never talk about the trade-off. They try to pretend that the trade-off doesn't exist, that everybody's doing so much better, but that's not necessarily the case, right?
Yeah, that's why that we've pointed out many, many, many times is that the important numbers here aren't the GDP. The important numbers are longest sustained wage growth in the United States history has just occurred with Donald Trump. Longest and most largest at over 3% sustained wage growth. I think it's 3.4% sustained wage growth, and that's the bottom of the pyramid here. In fact, one of the things that's being touted right now by the Trump administration and all of the financial people, including Wall Street, including Stuart Varney, including people who make their money doing this, did the rich get richer? Yes. But who got richer the most? The poor people. The people even below the middle class, the working poor are reaping the highest rewards in growth in their salaries. So even if the middle class doesn't realize how much better it is for them, which is about $10,000 per family per year, it's the bottom rung, the working poor. And the proof of that is 6 million people off of food stamps this last year. That's right. 6 million. The people are getting off of welfare. They're going to get one of those jobs because those jobs pay more. And those stats came out of the Government Accounting Office. That's right. Those stats are coming out of the actual government agencies with the Treasury that's going where here's all the ones and zeros. Here's why taxes are down. Tax rates are down, revenues are up. That's a provable fact. It's a statistic. It's there.
Yeah, and another thing that they don't talk about when they talk about this wonderful globalism and this wonderful growth, they don't talk about that it's fueled by debt. I mean, you look at the debt difference from 1982 to now, right? It's a horror show. It's a fucking horror show. Like 21 trillion, right?
Yep.
So you also have to factor in the fact that a lot of the Western countries that have been fueling, the industrial revolution in other countries now by signing off their own industries, by sending them overseas, by, becoming beholden to unelected trade federations and whatnot. The other factor is that the populations of these nations have been swelled artificially, in some cases by up to like 45%. So you've got a whole bunch of people coming in and a whole bunch of jobs going out. So that depresses wages, that artificially boosts like things like the housing market, for example, okay, because now you've got more people competing for less land, so houses cost more. So the building developers really love high immigration, They're one of the first to lobby government to say we need more people, because it makes houses more expensive. It also fuels consumerism, right? So you've got to keep the tills ticking over, but we're all going into debt to pay for these trinkets. We're all going into debt to pay for the houses. And then that becomes like stagnant capital at that point that people can sit on sometimes for 50 years. It's not doing anything. It's not washing around in the market, right? I want to play you this. We've played it before, but I think it's worth playing again because I think this guy is absolutely brilliant. This is Mark Blythe, who's a political economist who he lectures. I forget which university he lectures at in the United States, but this is worth playing again just off the back of that Fareed Sarkari's hot take on Trump's Davos. He was having a beer at Davos' house. Davos, his Davos speech. Have a listen to this.
We're not getting the audio.
You're not getting the audio? Why is that so quiet? Why is that so quiet?
I don't know. We can't hear it, though. I can't hear it.
Can't hear it? Okay, hang on. Is that muted for some reason? Mute. Unmute site.
Well, here's the thing. My side is I'm very pro-European, but I'm against the euro. So if I still lived in the United Kingdom, I would have an interesting choice. So if you look at Larry Elliott in The Guardian, Larry has said that he thinks he should vote for exit because this might be the existential crisis that blows up the euro. Now, why would you want to blow up the euro? Because that will be terrible, etc., etc. Because the long-run effect of the euro is going to be to drive Western European wages down to Eastern European levels in global competition for export share with the Chinese. That's one interpretation as to where this all goes. And that's going to be fine for the Eastern Europeans coming up. It's going to be great for very efficient exporters in the north. It's going to be an absolute disaster for France and parts of Italy, if not all of Italy, and certainly for Greece. Now,
and this applies to the United States as well, just so you know.
You have a system in which...
Same thing.
Well, also, what he's saying right here is actually proving true right now. It's in the mainstream media. Right now, France, what are they having? Exactly what he predicted they were going to have. Greece, what are they doing? They're like, what the fuck? We got to get out of the EU now. Think about that. The very people that started this, the very people, the reasons are because of financial, Greece is tanking, all these kinds of things. These are exactly what he's predicting here, because this was before this, is now happening right now in the media.
Yeah, and you know, don't let the corporate mainstream media misdirect you on what the point of the yellow vest protests was either, because now they're trying to turn it into, oh, these are all activists talking about shit like climate change. No. The reason that they're wearing yellow vests is because they are what? Blue collar workers, right? You know, blue collar workers wear yellow vests and shitty jobs. So the original, protests were, the yellow vest protests were about tax, because they were being taxed out of existence, whilst Emmanuel Macron was favouring people who owned, multi-million-dollar yachts. And they kept putting shit like the fuel taxes up, and people were having less and less and less and less money at the lower end of the spectrum. So they said, fuck it, we're not putting up with this anymore. And they started marching in the streets. So, same thing, right? Artificially boosting up the economy based on the bad decisions of the previous 3 decades. And this is what happens politically. Now, when people start to get the shits about it, when people start to get angry about it, right? They start voting in populists, okay? Like Trump, for example.
Plus, and the other side isn't allowed to run a deficit because of the rules. The only thing the other side can do is permanently contract their economies to allow someone else to make money selling BMWs. I don't see that ending well. So perhaps it's better to nip it in the bud when you've got the chance. Now, the thing is with Brexit, I don't think that's what the debate's all about. This is Trumpism. Everybody's got a version of it. Trumpism. Remember Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, well, here's what I mean by Trumpism. For the past 25 years, particularly the centre-left, has told the bottom 60% of the income distribution in the country is the following story. Globalization is good for you. It's awesome. It's really great. And we're going to sign these trade agreements. Don't worry, there'll be compensation. It'll be fine. You'll all end up as computer programmers. It'll be fantastic, right? And by the way, we don't really care because we're all going to move to the middle because that's where the voters are. And they're the people with money and they're the ones that we really care about. So you get this shift under Schroeder. You get the same thing under Blair to New Labour, whatever. And you make that move. And you basically take the bottom 30% of the income distribution and say, we don't care what happens to you. You're now something to be policed.
AKA the working class, right? The working class stiffs.
Yep. You're now something to have your behaviours change. We're going to nudge you into better patterns, as the Americans like to say. It's a very paternal, it's very patronising relationship. This is no longer the warm embrace of social democracy, arm in arm with solidarity with the working classes. They're there to be policed and excluded in their housing estates so that you feel safe in your neighbourhoods, so that you can have your private schools, they have their public schools, which you don't really want to pay taxes for anymore. So once this has evolved over 20 years, you have this revolt not just against Brexit. It's not about the EU. It's about the elites. It's about the 1%. It's about the fact that your parties that were meant to serve your interest have sold you down the river. Yeah, they're all the same. Think how ridiculous this is. Think of the Scottish independence thing, right? So these guys vote to stay in because the entire British establishment links arm in arm and says, don't do it. You got to wonder why, because ultimately who's going to get hurt if they do it? People with money. So they're saying, don't do this, right? So, okay, they go, all right, then we won't do it, right? So then the SNP, the anti-austerity party, are in, they're like, well, we didn't win that, but, we're still in power, great, on you go. Okay, so what happens next? Well, if there's going to be a Brexit vote to get out, then the Scots are going to vote to get back in. Okay, this is fun, right? So you're going to give up George Osborne, who's the austerity chancellor, for who? Dr. Schäuble. So your nice little Scottish welfare state's going to be really well protected by the tender embrace of the Germans. How's that working out for the Greeks? I'm thinking this one through. This is basically a revolt against technocracy. It is a revolt against governance by unrepresented, unelected, undemocratic elites. And having had a government where every single district in your country says no chance, 61% say no chance, and then the result is we're going to do it anyway, you're basically proving to people that democracy is irrelevant. So this is global Trumpism.
And at the end, it's a no-win scenario.
Well, it's a no-win scenario until basically elites figure out that at the end of the day, as I like to say to my American hedge fund friends, the Hamptons is not a defensible position. The Hamptons are a very rich area on Long Island that lie on low-lying beaches. Very hard to defend a low-lying beach. Eventually, people will come for you.
Eventually, people will come for you.
Yeah. Now, look, I want to point something out. In the middle of the speech. Now, keep in mind, this is before UKIP. This is before Le Pen. This is like pretty much, I can't remember the exact date of that, but it may have even been right after the election or just before the election in 2016 when he did this. And one of the, almost all the stuff that he said came true, number one. Number two is one of the very points that he made in there is literally represented by that man on the street interview I told everybody about that happened on Sky News, where they said literally the Labor voter told them, yeah, he was a great MP, but fuck him. We sent a message. We told them this is not what we want. He didn't listen. Fuck him. He's out. That's exactly the point he just made.
Yep. 100%. I want to bring it back to, I just thought that was interesting. And it just goes to show sometimes how far detached the corporate media is, I think, from the genuine concerns of people. And even when Fareed Zakaria, he kind of alludes to it, but then completely misframes it and completely turns it into something that it's not. I want to show you this short clip and then bring up a couple of topics for your consideration. Let's show you this. This is one of my favorite girls on morning TV, AM Joy, James. You're going to love this.
The reason that the president decided that 3 of his star defense attorneys were going to be part of the dotted line of the Fox media machine was to encourage spin. It was to obfuscate the truth from the American people. But the reason that they're going into the corner is because for the very first time, a lot of Fox viewers, for the very first time, were actually able to hear the material that is being presented, why the president should be impeached. And Adam Schiff did a fantastic job presenting that evidence. And I think that they're seeing that the Trump defense attorneys and their team are incredibly concerned because they can't deny that the president did anything wrong. They're just trying to obfuscate and try to confuse people, but they heard it directly from elected members of Congress who...
See, this is a talking point that they've been using. As I spent the weekend trying to take in as much of this garbage as I possibly could, to my own detriment. I must be some kind of sadist. I must hate myself deep down to do this to myself. This is a very common talking point that I've heard. Oh, the president's attorneys aren't able to refute the accusations. And I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, because there's nothing to refute.
Yeah.
That's why. Like, James, if I say to the audience that James is in reality a unicorn who flies around whenever there's a full moon and eats pineapple fritters on Mars when he goes on holidays, and then he comes out and says, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, I'm going to turn around and say, see, he's not even refuting it. Right? Exactly. You see my point? Like, exactly. So there's no actual hard evidence that they're presenting here. It's all inference. It's opinion. It's like, oh, I felt like something when I read this document. This person overheard this thing, which seemed like... You can't refute stuff like that. Because it's not real in the first place. It might be real, but it's not tangible It's not falsifiable. Am I making sense here?
Kind of. Look, the honest to God answer here is that they did refute absolutely everything they did. The Democrats presented their case for 21 hours. And in 2 hours, the president's lawyers basically completely destroyed their entire case. The whole thing. They played Gordon Sondland. They played the whole clip in context, not just the little part that Adam Schiff wanted to spin. It destroys what this chick just said. Like, literally in 2 hours, completely destroyed the case. There's nothing there. That's not even starting to argue the fact that, for one, even if their case was accurate, it's not a crime. It's an unimpeachable offense. That's a note that Alan Dershowitz will hit on either Monday or Tuesday. I think it's Monday that he'll hit on Monday. So all of these things are nonstop, just destroying what the left has. But I would even go a little bit further and drill down a little bit. Remember this at your core. Remember this one thing. What is a truism from Donald Trump, right? Never apologize. That is a little bit bigger than just not apologize. It's the sheer fact that I'll give you a perfect example. When idiots on the internet disagree with me and try to take over my chat, what do I do to them every time? I just let them talk until they make a mistake, and then I fucking hammer them, and then I walk away again. Why? Because I don't give a fuck. I don't have to deal with what they think I have to address. You can scream in the chat, answer me, answer me, answer me. Fuck you. It's the same thing here. Is that when just because someone makes an allegation doesn't mean you have to respond to it in any way. Fuck you. Prove it. That's the basis of our legal system in America and most Western countries. You have to prove someone's guilty because it is scientifically impossible to prove a negative. It is scientifically impossible to prove a negative. I can tell you for 100% certainty that there's no evidence that unicorns exist. But I cannot tell you with 100% certainty that they don't exist. I can only tell you that I have no evidence that they do exist. You see, it's a fine distinction, but it is reality.
Sure. I've got to carry on with a little bit more of this because it does get into the realm of the absurd.
Say that it's country before party, and they're going to have a really difficult time trying to spin that from folks that are hearing it for the very first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, you spoke the name of Giuliani. Here he is on their favorite network with Jeanine Pirro.
Their favorite network.
The president said in the past he didn't know who Parnas was. You know both of them. Can you shed light on any of this stuff?
Sure. I didn't know Parnas at the time of that tape. That's before I met him. And I wasn't at that dinner, but I can tell you simply the president goes to dinner with about 1,000 people.
Okay. Karine Jean-Pierre, you worked for a president of the United States. Is it that easy to get on the phone for an hour with a president of the United States and go to private breakfast with a president?
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy. That'd be silly. That kind of thing doesn't happen. That thing never happens.
That happens.
How about
that happens every day. Like,
how about before you go, Jay? I know you're ready to roll. It's not easy. It never happens. Remember, she worked for a president. She knows, Jay. She knows better than you. I just thought I'd bring this up. U.S. Embassy siege leader was guest at White House during Obama presidency.
Yeah.
It has now emerged that the leader of one of the Iran-backed paramilitary groups that laid siege to the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad had at one time been a guest to the White House during Barack Obama's presidency. So he didn't even just have a phone call. This guy was invited into the Oval Office. Why don't you take your shoes off? Make yourself comfortable. Adi al-Amiri, the powerful paramilitary leader who leads the Badr organization owing allegiance to Iran, was the Iraqi Minister of Transport under Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki 8 years ago when he was at the Oval Office in December 2011 as part of the delegation led by Maliki. There you go. So it happens.
Anybody wants to give me $1 million to donate to the Donald Trump re-election campaign, I promise you I will get to sit at a fucking dinner with the president. I promise you. Like, that's how this shit works. It's not about President Trump. It's about every single politician, from mayor to the fucking dog catchers to the sheriffs. If you donate enough money, you literally think about this. Why do they sell dinner with the vice president at $10,000 a plate. What the fuck do you think is happening? These fucking retards are sitting there on national television saying, it's not that easy with the president. Bullshit!
Yeah, and that's you just caught me mid-vape. And that's probably why, again, circling back around to the Sanders thing, that's probably why the Democrat establishment don't want a guy like Sanders in there, because he's not going to go and shake the hands. He's not going to do that. The donor class want to be able to, give the money and then have access and then have control and then decide what policy is going to be. If he is what everyone says he is, that being wrong, but somebody who means it, somebody who genuinely believes in what they say, then they're not going to be able to do that with him, right? Mm-hmm. So I suspect that's why the Democrats are falling over themselves to try and keep this guy out of the nomination. But I want to sort of change the conversation just slightly, if I can, James. I was talking with our mutual friend, Phil D'Angelo, who does Winning TV. Winning TV is on DLive, dlive.tv/winningtv_. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt real quick and say I want to apologize once again to Phil and Doc Martin. I did it live on my show, but we had to roll early and we stepped on them hard on Saturday night because I had to go to the birthday party you just announced. So I apologize again, Phil. I know you're around, so once again, I did not do it on purpose. I had no choice.
Phil's okay. Phil's tough. Easy Yankee. So we were talking about, because I keep coming back to this question, James, and maybe I'm missing something. So I want to put it to you. Maybe there's something really glaringly obvious that I'm skipping over, which would make it all fit in. I keep coming back to, if the Democrats know that this vote is going to be unsuccessful, of course, never say never, but it's highly unlikely that the Democrats are going to be able to convince, 67 senators that they need to vote a certain way. I think that is more in the realm of improbability than just about anything else happening right now. But of course, never say never. Yep. So if they know that this is the fact, then why would they do it? And then, the best that I can come up with is that it provides them an opportunity to try and formulate a campaign strategy for the Senate in 2020. Now, people say, well, that's ridiculous. And it's like, well, okay, let's have a look at it though. In 2018, the majority of the senators who were up for re-election were Democrats, right? And they were Democrats in Donald Trump's states. They were Democrats in flip, states. They were Democrats in tight races. They were under pressure, basically. And I think, if we're being honest, right, I would think that the Democrats are probably happy that they got out of it with 47 senators and didn't lose more. Do you think that would be a fair thing? Because a lot of people were saying shit like, oh, it's going to be 60 senators. Now, that might have been a little optimistic for Republicans, but I would suspect that the Democrats probably expected to lose more than they did. Do you think that's a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that even the numbers you just pointed out. I do want to say one thing real quick before you get back in the saddle here. Is that I've pointed this out. You've pointed this out. That's exactly what they're going after is the Senate campaign. That's it. They know they're not going to win. They know that there's zero chance they're going to convince 20 Republican senators to vote with them. But it gets even worse for them. There's already documents out there that are saying there's 3 Democrats that are going to vote with the Republicans on no impeachment. So now they have to convince 23 Republicans to vote with them. It's never going to happen. It's just the whole point of this is the political campaign. They are literally interfering with a presidential election on the taxpayers' dime. And they're doing it to win the Senate and try to maintain the House because they know the people of America are pissed.
And so the 3 senators, would I be right in saying Joe Manchin is one of them? I can probably see, maybe not, but just throwing it out there, I could see someone like a Kirsten Sinema not voting for impeachment. And who would the third one be, the third Democrat?
You know what? I forgot, but I do know it was Sinema and Joe Manchin. And Sinema, think about it. Right. Sinema is in Arizona, and the Democrats fucking hate her already.
Yeah, but she might get back in from Republicans voting for her.
Exactly.
So that's so we cast our mind forward and then we think about, all right, so the Democrats need to win back the Senate to put a stop to, 100% put the brakes on any kind of Donald Trump agenda for the next 4 years.
Doug Jones.
Okay,
Doug Jones. That's the one. They put it in the chat. Yeah, Alabama.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's going to be enough to save him, but we'll get to that. So they need to win back the Senate. So they can then run campaigns and say, well, Mitch McConnell didn't allow justice to take place in the Senate hearings, in the Senate trial. It was obvious, blah, blah, blah. He didn't call witnesses, blah, blah. You know the story, right? The campaign ads write themselves. Mm-hmm. So they'll say, you need to vote for Democrats in the Senate so we can hold Donald Trump accountable. And history, to be fair, is on their side. Usually it is harder for the party who holds the White House to hold the other two houses. Historically, it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So here's a few states that I've come up with that would suggest, well, maybe they're onto something. But again, I'm not saying it's real or not, but it's just worth considering. So if you look at Colorado, for example, the Republican there who's up for election is a guy named Cory Gardner. And you would think in a state like Colorado, which has a lot of liberals in it, that might be tough to hold, but who knows, right? So that's one. You've got the special election in Arizona, Martha McSally. Mm. So remember, Martha McSally actually lost, didn't she? Yep. And then got installed.
Yep.
And she's going up against a guy named Mark Kelly, who they say is a really good fundraiser. And he's married to Gabby Giffords, somebody who has like a big profile. Mm. So, and if you think about it, that the Arizona special election one was interesting for me because with Kirsten Sinema, voting, more along moderate lines, I wonder if that will in any way frame the special election when it comes to Martha McSally against another Democrat. Like if he presents as another moderate, do you think that might increase his chances of getting rid of McSally, who again lost the first election and just got installed? Mm. So, like that's tricky. So that's a couple already. You've also got North Carolina. So the senator in North Carolina who's up for election, the GOP guy, is a guy named Tom Tillis. And if you don't remember him, he was the one who went on the media and criticized Donald Trump for the emergency funding for the wall. Do you remember that?
What was that again? Who?
Tom Tillis.
Oh, yeah. Tom Tillis. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So there's three right there where you can see that the Democrats might have a chance. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that the dynamic has shifted. In 2018, it was mostly Democrats who were up for election. This time, it's mostly Republicans. Mm. So you might say, well, this is absolutely not going to happen. And, I don't think that the Republicans will lose the Senate, in all honesty. Mm. But I was just pointing out why it's different this time to where it was in 2018. Sure. So I was talking to Phil earlier today, and we were talking about the House. And it's funny for me because we know that impeachment historically is a really unpopular thing to do. Even if people don't like the president historically, they are not in favor of impeaching him because voters tend to see it as the political machine doing their job for them, like making decisions for them. And people would rather get rid of a politician at the ballot box than have politicians do it for them, right? It's like they're taking power away from you, so they don't like it intrinsically. And if you think about all of these seats that the Democrats won in 2018 in the midterms in order to win back the House, we're talking about dozens of them that are on razor-thin margins. Yep. Sometimes in the space, sometimes we're talking about hundreds of votes. That's all it's going to take. And the way that the Democrats won a lot of these races was by distancing themselves from Washington, like distancing themselves from the Democrat brand in Washington, like Pelosi and stuff, and running on local issues, running on shit like healthcare. So you think about, try to put yourself in the mind of the average Democrat voter in one of these swinging districts. Like you're not a raving liberal protester. You don't, you're not a pussy hat wearer. Maybe you're a guy with like a union background. You've been voting Democrat your whole life. You live in like a moderate district. Okay. You got a wife and kids. You still have a flag. You still love guns. That kind of a Democrat. They're out there. You put yourself in the mind of a person like that. Now, for the last 3 years, your party has been talking about nothing but impeachment. But your candidate that you elected he said he was going to do something about healthcare, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if you've seen a lot of these town halls and stuff. You're seeing Democrat voters approaching their candidates saying, hey, we voted for you to do something about healthcare. Why the fuck are you talking about impeachment? You haven't done anything. You haven't done what we elected you to do. And remembering that these races are on razor-thin margins, it would only take 1 in every 10 voters to... It was a low turnout election too, by the way. So it would only take 1 in every 10 voters or something like that to come out and vote for a Republican, and these people are out of a job again, these Democrat candidates. So they're not running, they're not, you know, the idea, the perception is that all the Democrats are talking about is impeachment. So where the mainstream media, I think, is failing here is that that's all they talk about is impeachment, 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 impeachment. And they would think, I suspect, that they would eventually wear people down until people say, okay, he needs to be impeached. Like maybe that's their thinking, right? That if we just keep hitting it enough, people will eventually turn and agree with us. But they're actually making it more difficult for these candidates in these purple districts, if you think about it, because the candidate might have been arguing for healthcare. They might have been arguing for other things. But every time their voters turn the TV on, what do they see? Impeachment. Right? That's all that's happening. So these candidates have to go back to their local districts and say to people, no, I'm not with, I'm not with the Nancy Pelosi. I'm not with Adam Schiff. I'm trying to fight for this local community. I'm trying to fight for healthcare. I'm trying to fight for this and that. But every time the voters turn the TV on, all they see is impeachment. And while I was having this conversation with Phil, he mentioned a candidate in New York, in his area, called a guy named Anthony Brindisi. I don't know if you've heard of him. I wanted to... I wanted to show you a couple. So I went to his website and I've pulled up a couple of his campaign commercials. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? So have a look at this. Look at the way that, you know, these at-risk Democrats in the House are trying to distance themselves from impeachment. They're trying to present themselves as moderates, right? Because they know, like, this to me is more indicative of where the average voter is at in terms of impeachment than any poll that's shown on CNN or Fox News. Because this local guy would have a local understanding and he knows what his voters are talking about because they have people out there canvassing the electorate, right? So have a look at a couple of his campaign commercials that I've got lined up here. Just have a look at this, the way it's presented.
One of the most powerful men at Albany, Sheldon Silver, arrested today.
Facing corruption-related charges of mail fraud, wire fraud, and extortion. Democrats were instructed to remain in support of Silver and warned not to speak to reporters. But Anthony Brindisi stood up to his party leaders and helped to orchestrate Sheldon Silver's ouster.
It didn't matter. It was my own party. The corruption had to stop. In Congress, I'll work with anyone who wants to get things done. But I'll also stand up to anyone who wants to hurt New York.
I'll work with anyone.
Right? Are you seeing what's happening here? Yeah. Now, here's another one, right?
I'm Anthony Brindisi. Claudia Tenney and I see things very differently. For me, it doesn't matter if an idea comes from a Republican or Democrat. If it's a good idea, I'll support it, like bringing jobs upstate. I've never been afraid to stand up to my party, forcing Sheldon Silver to resign. And I'm taking on special interests, like Spectrum Cable.
Taking on special interests.
I approve this message because Claudia Tenney just does what the special interests want, and it's hurting upstate New York.
When I see campaign ads like this, it shows me that these candidates who are in purple districts or at-risk districts are legitimately shitting their pants, that the only messaging that comes out of Washington is impeachment, 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 impeachment. You notice he didn't mention the DNC. He didn't mention Nancy Pelosi. He didn't mention Washington at all. He didn't mention impeachment in all. What's this guy's message? I stand up to my own party. I don't do what my party tells me. I take ideas from Republicans and Democrats. Do you see how afraid, like they're running scared in these districts? And that, I think, indicates just how unpopular impeachment is in these places.
I think Phil needs to get on his Republican opponent's campaign team and play that exact commercial and then insert his other guy's voice that says, oh, you stand up to your party. How'd you vote on impeachment again? Oh, you're bringing jobs. How'd you vote against Donald Trump's jobs bill? Yeah. Oh, you stand up for bringing up more money to lowering tax cuts. How exactly did you vote again? Oh, yeah, that's right. You voted against Donald Trump on all three of these issues. So go fuck yourself. I mean, look, this is right now what we are in is wedge politics season. That's what we're in. Everybody needs to recognize that. And I'm imploring people on our side to quit attacking our side right now. Right now, nobody's doing anything. You're just not happy because Hillary Clinton's not been arrested yet. You're just not happy because Jim Comey's not in jail yet. You're just not happy because Andrew McCabe hasn't been imprisoned yet. I get it. But quit attacking people like Lindsey Graham and, fuck, I can't even speak right now. Mitch McConnell and all the rest of these fucking idiots, because we know they're idiots, but attacking them is just wedge politics. Okay. That's all that's going to happen right now until about October, to be honest with you. Right? Like, let them completely fuck up and do something that's against our interests. Right now, I'm telling you, we've been highlighting this. If Lindsey Graham doesn't do what he's supposed to do and somehow votes against the president, we got a problem. But until then, quit attacking the guy. Put your bullets downrange on the fucking Bernie Sanders leftist, communist, socialist pricks like AOC that want to burn your country down.
So again, put yourself in the mind of a moderate Democrat voter, right? Maybe you vote for tradition. Maybe you vote, because your daddy voted Democrat and his daddy voted Democrat, and you've got your family's been in the union for, God knows how long. And, you don't really think about politics until it gets to election day. You're one of these guys. So, your candidate has been elected to do something about local issues. They haven't done anything. They're now running campaign ads saying, vote for me again. I stand up to my party. I'll do something about healthcare. And you're sitting there going, can you believe this fucking prick? Huh? Sitting here on the TV talking about doing something about healthcare. He's done nothing about healthcare. He's going to get this fucking prick's going to get me to vote for him again, huh? Fuck that. You know what I mean? Yep. People are angry. People are pissed off. And then they turn on, while their candidate is telling them that they're doing stuff about healthcare, doing stuff about local issues, and don't care about impeachment, they turn on CNN and they say shit like this.
One of the other things I think was notable was who did the arguments today. It was mostly the president's official lawyers. These are White House lawyers. These are government employees, as opposed to the president's personal lawyers. Jay Sekulow was the only personal lawyer who spoke today. That to me was pretty striking.
White House and white people.
What?
White House and white people, James. Yes.
Jesus.
The issue that Jeffrey Toobin has on CNN, the legal analyst on CNN. Remember, this is getting beamed into a small amount of homes, granted, not many homes. But this is the presentation of politics that goes out there. And real politics for people is much more localized. You've said it yourself. It starts at local level, right?
Yep.
So this is the impression that voters are getting in these purple districts. And then in reality, the candidates in these purple districts, the newly won Democrat seats in the House in 2018, they're now having to go back to their constituents and say, no, I don't even agree with my own party. Yeah. I'm not one of them. I'm one of you. I'll work with anyone.
Hey, Connor
I just
Lamb,
see it all boomeranging on them be time, but I could be wrong.
I think Connor Lamb is out in Pennsylvania because he said he was going to vote with Trump he did what the other guy's ad said he was going to do. But then he voted against Donald Trump on all of these issues. Same with Doug Jones. All these people, like you're pointing out, I don't think they're going to win this next time around. Now, we still have to support the Republicans in our seats. Like I've said, if you've got someone in it's your district. It's not for me to tell you what to do in your district. But I'm telling you better make sure you're doing the right thing to get a Republican elected in your district. Because even though we know there's rhinos, even though we know that there's problems, we call them out constantly on our shows. A rhino at least has to try to play nice. At least we can attempt to move them and push them and use political pressure from the top, Donald Trump, to correct them. You can't do that with a Democrat. And for certain, the Democrats are telling you they're going to fundamentally change the country to communism forever. Like, that's what they are telling you. I'll even show you in a degree what they did in the Democrat-run states, how they fucked their own tax base out of feeling the effects of the Trump tax cuts. When Donald Trump got the tax cuts to go into effect to get more money into your pocket so that you would feel that pay raise hitting your pocket, yeah, those Democrat states raised your local taxes, your state and local taxes, so that you don't feel like you benefited at all. See, it's psychological over the long term. You're not going to blame them. You're just going to see, oh, well, yep, I guess the economy's not as good as we thought it was. Donald Trump's just telling us it's good. It's not that good. Why? Because you got fucked by your state and your local government.
Yep. And just to go back to just very quickly before we move on, just the Senate races. So in Colorado, the Republican Cory Gardner is going up against, do you remember us making fun of the guy John Hickenlooper when he pulled out of the presidential race? We're like, who the fuck is this guy? No one's ever heard of him. Guess who's running in that race? John Hickenlooper. So he got to get his name splashed, in a very minute fashion at least. He got to get his name out there on the national stage for a little bit, and now he's going into a toss-up election against a Republican in, arguably a liberal-leaning state in Colorado. And with Alabama, I agree with you entirely. I don't think Doug Jones is going to win, regardless of how he votes, because even though the AG, even though the stewardship of the Attorney General's office under Jeff Sessions probably ended unceremoniously, they still love him in Alabama, and he's running again.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be really tough for Doug Jones to hold that seat.
This is a perfect example. That's a perfect example of where everybody needs to take a pill and shut the fuck up. Okay, Jeff Sessions did not do what we wanted as the fucking Attorney General. Okay, he dropped the fucking ball. He recused himself. Now, I'm going to play that famous song, Get Over It. Get the fuck over it. Because do you want Doug Jones to stay in the Senate, or do you think you should help fucking get Jeff Sessions back elected? Okay? Just think about this. Jeff Sessions is, number one, the first fucking senator to stand up for Donald Trump. He stood by him all through the election, to the point where even he got appointed Attorney General. Now, was he a decent senator for Alabama forever? Obviously, because he was there forever. So put him back in the fucking job and quit bad-mouthing the guy. I fucking hate what he did as Attorney General, but we have to support Republicans. And attacking Jeff Sessions is another wedge politics tactic. The fucking left loves watching you attack your own. That's just the way it is.
Well, it's like, you might be a really good minor league baseball player, and then you go up to the big leagues and it doesn't really work out. It's kind of average, and you end up getting a sack at the end of the first season. You don't just stop playing baseball. You go back to the minor leagues again. It's like, well, maybe this is my place. Maybe this is as high as I can go, and I can be really good here. I can be really effective. So just because it didn't work out for him as AG doesn't mean he's all of a sudden a terrible senator.
Right.
And again, the people of Alabama love the guy.
Yep.
So, it's up to them, essentially, isn't it, whether they elect him or not?
And I have said this publicly on many shows. They're making the point in the chat right now. I have said this publicly many times. Jeff Sessions did not do nothing. Jeff Sessions did a pretty goddamn good job at going after pedophiles, sex traffickers, drug dealers, all kinds of different issues, the border. Jeff Sessions did a pretty damn good job. He only failed us on that one thing. It was a major thing. We have to give credit to the people that hate him for that. But he did do a good job. He just fucking recused himself, which created a fucking disaster that we're still going through in an impeachment trial. But holding on to a grudge that is going to hurt yourself is dumb. It's like fighting with your wife every fucking day for 10 years because you didn't put the fucking toilet seat up. I mean, it's the same fucking thing. It's dumb. It is self-defeating.
That's a great analogy, by the way. I'm going to steal that one. Let me show you this. We touched on this earlier. Sanders seizes lead in volatile Iowa race, Times poll finds. With solid support from Liberals, Mr. Sanders appears to be peaking just as the caucuses approach, but many Iowa voters say they could still change their mind. Look at this. Look at this. Sanders, 25%. Buttigieg, second place, James, 18%. And then you've got to get down to Biden at 17 and Warren at 15, who seem to be tanking at the exactly the wrong time, who seem to be going downhill at exactly the wrong time. Senator Bernie Sanders has opened up a lead in Iowa just over a week before the Democratic caucuses, consolidating support from liberals and benefiting from divisions among more moderate presidential candidates who are clustered behind him. According to a New York Times Siena College poll of likely caucus goers, Mr. Sanders has gained 6 points since the last Times Siena survey in late October and is now capturing 25% of the vote in Iowa. Pete Buttigieg, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. That's the first time I've ever seen him referred to as Joseph R. Biden Jr. I can't remember ever seeing that before. So I guess now he's an elitist again. Is that how we're trying to present it? Have remained stagnant since the fall, with Mr. Buttigieg capturing 18% and Mr. Biden 17%. The rise of Mr. Sanders has come at the expense of his fellow progressive Senator Elizabeth Warren. So there you go. It's backfired, right? The attempt to shoehorn her into the socialist demographic has failed, and people see her as a puppet of the corporate media and the establishment. She dropped from 22% in the October poll, enough to lead the field, to 15% in this survey, and then you get into the dregs like Klobuchar. I want to show you this. Again, think of the campaign commercials we just watched for the fellow up in New York, right? Are you starting to see a pattern emerge, ladies and gentlemen? Are you starting to see a particular kind of push emerge? You've got Sanders on the far left, the anti-establishment guy who's increasingly popular. And now you've got people like Pete Buttigieg, who we identified on this program a while ago as being the dark horse in this race for a number of reasons, for a number of factors, mainly because, one of the main reasons being, the South Bend mayor, local guy who can speak to the kind of voters that they're going to have to win back if they want to win back the White House, that being the blue wall type voters, right? And remember, it starts at the local level. So, here's your little local guy. Hey, I'm against Washington too. I'm against the big party establishment. I'm against DC. The same BS, essentially, as we just watched in that New York candidates' campaign commercials. Buttigieg to focus on converting Trump voters for final week in Iowa, James. Isn't it cute? Pete Buttigieg will close out his campaign in Iowa, focusing on his ability to win over disaffected Republicans who backed Donald Trump in 2016. His campaign tells CNN, hoping that Democrats who are hell-bent on defeating Trump in November will be wooed by a candidate who can eat into the president's support. Are you seeing a pattern emerge, ladies and gentlemen? The concerted push will amount to an electability argument by the Buttigieg campaign, which hopes to seize on the fact that Iowa has more so-called pivot counties, those places that voted for Barack Obama in 2012, but then backed Trump 4 years later. What did I just say about the kind of votes that they need to win, right? They don't need to win them. They need to win them back. Mm-hmm. That's the key. Than any other state in the country. And this was always my fear, right? In 2016. It's not just a case of winning the votes. You have to hold them now. That's a different argument entirely, because the Democrats don't really need to revolutionize things. Really, if the Democrats win back the blue wall, they win the White House. And we're essentially talking about 90,000 votes here. Now, again, when I say things like this, people go right off the handle and they say, oh, he's saying a Democrat's going to win. No, calm down. Those are just the raw numbers. That would be the number on the whiteboard in the electoral office that they would have a circle around. Target these 90,000 people. Why did they switch? Why did they go from Obama to Donald Trump? What makes this particular race different to the other races? What do voters in this area want? What are their aspirations? How can we tap into it? How can we win them back to the warm embrace of the Democrat Party, right? These are the kinds of things that they're thinking about.
I think I have the answer to that question, and I think it's not good for the Democrats, the answer. And here's the answer. Why did people vote for Obama and then Donald Trump? What was the one thing that they both have in common? Change. That people voted because they did not want the status quo. They wanted change. Obama promised hope and change, and they got fucked. So what happened? The people said, well, this motherfucker didn't give it to us. Let's try this guy who's saying change. And then they got a guy who gave them the change they were looking for. So now the Democrats, even though they're going to make up all kinds of shit to justify it to themselves. People never admit when they just have what are they going to do? Say, oh, we're fucked. They're not going to say that. They can't run on change because this is what happened. This is the common theme for these 90,000 people especially, right? Is change. Now they got the change that they wanted and they're fucking happy. I don't think the Dems can win those 90,000 back for that exact reason.
Sure. And I'll just show you how they're trying, though, just for argument's sake. Continuing in the article, the messaging will manifest itself both in Buttigieg's schedule over the next week in Iowa. The candidate will headline events in Webster, Boone, and Wapello, I hope that's pronounced correctly, counties, all of which flipped to Trump in 2016, as well as their decision to headline a Fox News town hall in Sunday in Des Moines, hoping the platform on Trump's favorite cable outlet will reach some voters who helped him win the White House. The campaign will also begin to run a slate of new digital ads aimed at building support in places Trump won in 2016, including a series of 15-second ads that will highlight 5 Iowa counties that Trump won in 2016, Appanoose, Henry, Marion, Warren, and Washington, and Buttigieg's pitch to win them back. The ads feature the margin that Trump won the county by and why the campaign believes Buttigieg can win. And this is a quote from one of the commercials. Warren County, Iowa. In 2016, Donald Trump won it by 16 points. Not this time, says a narrator over shots of Buttigieg. Pete is going everywhere and meeting everyone. This is how we win. The strategy reflects an urgency for Buttigieg in Iowa. Sources close to Buttigieg tell CNN that there is a growing consensus inside the campaign that if the mayor does not place in the top 2 in either Iowa or New Hampshire, or if he places behind former Vice President Joe Biden in both states, the race could effectively be over for the 38-year-old former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So you can see he's in the places where people switched from Barack Obama to Donald Trump, in the places that you would call like, blue wall type areas, the places that are flip seats, this guy is trying to court, the Donald Trump voter, essentially. Yep. Now, I agree with you. I tend to think that it's not going to work, but it just points to like a nationwide campaign in these purple districts. Again, nothing in his campaign here talks about impeachment, does it? Yep. They don't mention impeachment. Nothing in the New York guys' campaign commercials talks about impeachment. So for the people in these toss-up areas, it's going to be like effectively impeachment doesn't exist. And that's exactly the perception that they're trying to give to people. They're trying to do, on one hand, they're saying, oh, no, it's not about impeachment. It's about jobs. It's about healthcare. It's about the working class families. But all the while in Washington, it's just impeachment, and nothing but for the last 3 years.
I actually think I agree with you 100%. And I actually think that it's a winning strategy for Republicans in the smaller districts, especially Congress and especially Senate, to run on impeachment. Literally run on their fucking opponents' record.
100%.
Hey, you guys voted against jobs. You guys voted against tax cuts. You guys voted for impeachment. I would be hammering it home, and I would be using mainstream media in the commercials. CNN, MSLSD, even Fox News. I would be using fucking what's his face, the dipshit we all fucking can't stand, the guy that he lost his mind trying to fucking attack Alan Dershowitz today. God, what the fuck is his name? I can see Mike, come on, help me out. Fucking Jesus Christ. I can't think of his name all of a sudden. That's how much I fucking hate him. He does the Sunday shows all the time. He's a pompous, fucking supercilious ass.
Michael Smircornish?
No, not Smircornish, not him. On Fox, the fucking, the dipshit.
I don't know. I don't watch it.
Fuck. Whatever. Who cares? My point is I would be using those clips ad nauseum. Yes, Wallace. Fucking Chris Wallace. Mike Wallace, the fucking asshole. Chris Wallace. Not Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace was his dad. Chris Wallace. I'm a fucking idiot. I told you my brain was not working. My body's not working. I am fucking horrible at this, I tell you. But yeah, Chris Wallace, a fucking asshole. I would be using clips of him attacking and going after those Democrats on their record.
100%. Remind voters in those areas what's really happening in Washington, right? Remind voters that, hey, while your guy's up here talking about that he wants to do healthcare, that he wants to work with Republicans, that he doesn't care where a good idea comes from, that he cares about blue-collar jobs, that he cares about working families, that he cares about all this stuff, just remind them what's happening in Washington. They can say that all they like, but all they've been doing for the last 3 years is talking about impeaching the president, which is not going to happen. And which, the voters in these areas do not agree with, by and large. They don't want to impeach him. So, of course, you make the campaign all about the impeachment. 100%. We haven't done this guy for a while, James, for this edition of The Hammering. So let's rock and roll. A flashback.
A flashback. I love it. Let me get this fucking going.
Stop the hammering.
We go to one of our favorites on this program, ladies and gentlemen. Have you got the screen there? I can't see the screen up on the big screen.
Oh yeah, it's there. But you're not sending me anything for something. Let me see. Oh no, it's my fault. You're sending it to me. Hold on. Yep. Let me just do this. You know what? It's the fucking hammering. Okay, folks? There you go.
There you go. Hey. Okay, it's time for the hammering. Good stuff. Okay. Excellent build-up, James. So we haven't done Brian for a while, so I thought we'd check in on Bri, see what he's talking about. Of course he's talking about the impeachment. So what does Brian think the big issue with impeachment is, James? Let's have a look.
The Senate trial resumes tomorrow, so time for a pop quiz. How are these 5 news items?
Pop quiz, hot shot.
All related. Number 1, Fox News Channel's decision to stick with its regular right-wing talk shows in prime time.
Oh.
That's while the Democrats were laying out their evidence against Trump on the Senate floor.
Right.
Number 2, Rudy Giuliani launching a brand new podcast and web video series. Number 3, President Trump sitting down with Fox's Maria Bartiromo in Davos and congratulating her for signing a fat new contract.
He's very, very salty, isn't he?
Oh,
he's
man.
very salty. How come Rudy Giuliani gets a podcast and I don't? How come Maria Bartiromo's getting a pay raise and I don't?
Number 4, Rudy Giuliani going on Judge Jeanine's show. One of Fox's much smaller rivals, OANN.
Can I point something out?
Yeah.
Please.
I just want to point out how CNN's framing cut off the top of fucking Bri's head.
Oh, no, that's me. That's my fault.
Okay.
Because I've got it full screen. We got to be honest.
All right.
And last but not least, President Trump posting more than 330 times on Twitter in just the last 5 days. Lots and lots of retweets, including dozens of videos from Fox talk show segments.
The problem for the CNN media types with Trump's timeline never ceases to amuse me, because they admit that Trump's Twitter account amplifies what they would call disinformation, right? What they would call bullshit. They admit that this is like a weapon, but they're kind of caught between two worlds, because if they ignore it, then they can't criticize it. But if they criticize it, then they have to amplify it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
they really don't know what to do with Trump's Twitter account. He's got fucked.
To be fair, in a land of 330 million people, only less than 250,000 people watch this show anyway. So there you go.
What do all these things have in common? They're all examples of the pro-Trump media universe operating in a
pro-Trump media universe, James.
Really closed loop, downplaying or just totally denying Trump's wrongdoing while amplifying all the defenses. Back with me is John Avlon, Oliver Darcy, and Susan Glasser.
Oh, good. Oliver Darcy. Yay.
Yay.
Oliver, you study this right-wing ecosystem for a living. It does seem
right-wing ecosystem. Now we're a virus. Do you see how he did that? Right-wing ecosystem.
It's like, in other words, it's like a self-sustaining, it's like a world, we're all living in a jar with a couple of holes punched in the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an ant farm.
Yeah.
It's a self-sustaining ecosystem. Nothing can get in or out. Everything is quarantined outside of the ecosystem.
Just getting, strong.
But meanwhile, in the corporate media / Washington bubble, they're the people that are in the real world. Right. Yeah, we just saw Jeffrey Toobin complain that all of the lawyers for Donald Trump are white men. Like, that's the big fucking issue here.
Stronger and stronger. The Fox firewall is holding very strong.
The Fox firewall, James.
Yeah, and they're trying to
You've heard of the blue wall. Now you deal with the Fox firewall.
The arguments from the Democrats, which the audience is not used to hearing, right? They're used to hearing Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity give them the...
So look at it. So they are so up their own asses. They are so pompous. Like, look at the looks on the face. Listen to what he's saying. Oh, the Fox News audience isn't used to hearing arguments from Adam Schiff. No. There's a difference between that and saying that's bullshit. There's a difference. Not agreeing with the arguments from Adam Schiff is not the same as not listening to them, right? I think everybody pretty much knows the accusations for impeachment. The problem for guys like Darcy is the people who he says aren't listening are actually saying that is a complete load of fucking codswallop. Like, I'm not going along with it. There's a difference.
Amplifying all the defense.
No. The difference is they just haven't heard it yet. Oh, okay.
Back with me is John Avlon, Oliver Darcy, and Susan Glasser. Oliver, you study this right-wing ecosystem for a living. It does seem that the wall's just getting, stronger and stronger. The Fox firewall is holding very strongly.
Yeah, and they're trying to inoculate their audience from...
Again, right? The virus talk.
Yep.
The virus talk again, inoculate.
Arguments from the Democrats, which the audience is not used to hearing, right? They're used to hearing Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity give them the comfort food that they want.
Comfort food.
And so this week in primetime, the one opportunity perhaps that the audience would see these arguments made by someone like Adam Schiff, they didn't get to see it because they were inoculated by the Fox audience in primetime.
Yeah, the afternoon hearing.
I just thought at that point I'd bring up something. So he says, they didn't get to see the arguments from Adam Schiff because they were inoculated against it because they went with their host. And I thought, okay, fair enough. So I jumped on the CNN YouTube page, James, to see if I could find the Trump attorney's defense. No.
Not there.
Adam Schiff, questions patriotism, Adam Schiff again, Adam Schiff. Schiff is on here at least 6 times in the first few lines of the CNN YouTube page. Not one clip of President Trump's attorneys and their defense. Not one.
Not one.
Not even a 2-minute clip. Not even a 5-minute clip of a panel mocking it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it's that old thing, isn't it? They're accusing the other people of what they're doing.
Yep.
Trial coverage was shown live on Fox News, but then Fox would cut away.
But I want to point out, too, in the afternoon when they had the news anchors on, supposedly, right? They brought out Andy McCarthy.
Yeah. You see the guy sitting next to him? Yeah, I saw that. They brought on that McCarthy guy. Yeah. It's a total scam, man.
Here's the
total
funny,
scam.
Are they aware that most of the Trump voting audience actually didn't even watch it on Fox? Most of us watched it on C-SPAN?
No, of course not. Of course not. What makes you think that the people on CNN have any real idea what, the Trump voting audience thinks about anything? It's all projection. They tell you what you think.
Yep.
They tell you what you care about. They tell you that you've just got a mind virus, that you've been inoculated against real information by Tucker Carlson. They just implant upon people what they think, what they want them to think. They don't genuinely care what you think. They don't care what you think about politics or whatever. What you care about issues or what you care about impeachment. Their job is to present a false reality.
Yep. Just to try to bring us back on track here. What is the number one thing you should never do, especially in media, is use the same words more than once within the span of, a minute, like Oliver Darcy. Inoculated. You know what I mean? Like, come on, expand your vocabulary a little bit there, Darcy.
They didn't bring on Judge Napolitano, the top legal analyst for years on Fox News, who happens to be very critical of the president's position and wrote this week that there's enough evidence to support his removal. They did not bring him on. They brought on Andy McCarthy, who was very sympathetic to Trump's case.
I'm sorry, Oliver, where is the Republican on this panel?
Yep.
Right? Where is the Republican? Where is the person saying that he should not be impeached on any CNN show? Give me one.
You know how I was just going to say, how they cover that is Bri is going to come out and say at the end of this and say, we've reached out for White House guests, but they refuse to respond.
Yeah. Kellyanne Conway is the only one that goes on there. And when she does, fans of CNN and MSNBC criticize them. Why are you giving this person a platform? Why are you giving this Republican a platform to spread their lies? That's what they carry on about.
And if you look, even further, Martha McCallum, for instance, this week, she's a top news anchor at Fox. She did a segment on Hunter Biden's paternity case instead of airing the Senate impeachment trial. Brett Baer had on this week Peter Schweitzer, who has pushed discredited theories about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden.
What? Did you notice that he stopped short of saying debunked, though, didn't he? He said discredited. Yes, but discredited by whom, Oliver? By Hillary Clinton. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
On to promote his new book. And so it's not just the Fox News opinion hosts who are skewing.
See, I think in order to discredit somebody, the person doing the discrediting must have some credibility, to be fair.
To be fair.
The news towards Trump. It's also the Fox News, anchors, the people that boast about that give it to you straight, who are also happening to skew the news toward Trump.
And they're tilting the playing field in that way.
100%.
By the way,
tilting the playing field, James.
I want to know how they can get away with this. I really do. So they're saying that Fox News is tilting the Senate playing field. Mm-hmm. So in other words, the senators they're only watching Fox News as well. That's what they're saying here.
Everything is rigged.
Oh.
In this universe, everything is rigged. The 2016 election was rigged. The coverage of the hearings is rigged. And if Donald Trump does not get impeached because the coverage is rigged, then the 2020 election will be rigged. It is a complete, from bottom to top, false reality that is being perpetuated onto average people. And it's fucking horrifying. And go back to the very first thing we played with Adam Schiff, right? The hubris to stand there and say, if we don't get rid of this guy now, then the 2020 election is null and void. And look straight down with a straight face and look straight down the camera at it. And then you've got Brian and Oliver Darcy on shows like this saying, oh no, the audience is being inoculated from the reality. It is so manipulative. It's creepy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the audience is being withheld from the truth by Tucker Carlson. Fox News has been tilting the playing field. See, the poor citizens who watch Fox News, they're not getting the real story. They're being shielded from the reality. We're the brave patriots trying to bring truth and light and justice to the unjust world. Fox News is rigging everything. It's weird, man.
It is really weird, but I find solace in the fact that at least we have accurate numbers for how many people need to be locked up into an insane asylum, and that would be the CNN audience.
You mentioned Judge Andermatt.
Hey, I watch it for material. Don't throw me in there.
His most recent column for FoxNews.com and for newspapers was shared by Nancy Pelosi, shared by the top Democrat, because she agrees with that perspective. John, you were agreeing with the point about Napolitano.
Yeah, it's an important point. Dissent is seen as disloyalty. You get benched if you're not following the Fox News line, because the business model is all play to the base. And so they're working.
We watched as the president of CNN gave direct orders to employees at CNN. You know what I mean? We saw the employees of CNN say that Jeff Zucker will jump on the phone and say, forget about all this other stuff. We're just doing impeachment. We're just talking about impeachment. We saw the employees at CNN, James, say, some of us would like to cover real news. Some of us would like to cover other things. But fucking Jeff Zucker jumps on the phone and tells you that it's all going to be impeachment all the time. That's the only thing we're talking about. And again, it's sheer audacity to then come on and say, well, the problem is that Fox News is playing to their base. They're playing to their base. They're giving them what they want. Maybe CNN should start giving people what they want and their ratings wouldn't be in the fucking toilet all the time. How about that? How's that for an idea?
Working hand in glove with the administration to push the same talking points. And that necessarily means ignoring evidence. means ignoring the Democrats' case.
Again, and it's just so dumb, it's barely worth pointing out. Oh, okay, so Fox News is pushing the talking points of the White House. Who's pushing the talking points of Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, James? Right? Come on, really?
Talking over it, turning the sound off, and having analysts talk over it, in addition to simply wiping the slate clean and doing ad hominem attacks in primetime. The bigger challenge is that this...
Yep, no substance. No substance, in other words. There's nothing to it. It's all lies. It's a light show. It's a shiny thing. You're being distracted from the truth.
Ends up seeping up to the Senate. And this is where we've got a real challenge
seeping
for our
up
Republic
to
right
the
now.
Senate. There it is. We just got done telling you. They're claiming that Fox News is now in charge of the Senate. These people are batshit lunatics.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Brian Stelter on the network that literally gives orders to its employees to only talk about impeachment and only talk about the possibility that Donald Trump will be impeached and there is no other story. From the very network that gives you that, we now present Exhibit B, which is the Senate is now being controlled by Fox News because the audience of Fox News is essentially living in a jar with a few holes poked in the top. They are in their own ecosystem, and the audience has been inoculated against the truth. The truth, apparently, that Adam Schiff presented, which is somewhere, somebody, sometime heard something that made them feel something, which means that the 2020 election is not valid or something. But I don't think that I necessarily agree with that. No. You've just been inoculated by Fox News. Don't you see how you're under control of a mind virus? I think you're being a little bit unreasonable. Shut up, you stupid voter. Shut up. Come to CNN and get the real truth immediately. But I don't think that he should be impeached. Oh, we've got another conspiracy theorist who doesn't think that Donald Trump should be impeached. We've got another racist on our hands. If only it wasn't only white men presenting the arguments, maybe it could have been different, James. There's your hammering.
Oh, my God. So good.
Stop the hammering.
I love it. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for another edition of Trust and Verify in the can through all the technical glitches. I hope you feel that you still got your money's worth because you didn't pay for it anyways. We love you. We will see you next week. Boogie will be back tomorrow with his daily Boogie show. I will be back tomorrow with my daily drive around the fucking island show. And we will keep moving on. We will see you next week, everybody. Take care. I got to find the outro. There it is. Aloha. Everybody have a great day.
Look, it's hard being a Democrat. You got to make tough decisions like, do I vote for a socialist who'll destroy the economy, or do I vote for a socialist who's totally insane and who'll destroy the economy? Well, for the rest of us, here's an easy one. Donald Trump. It's a fact. In Trump's America, more people are getting a paycheck than ever before. 6 million new jobs in 3 years. That's one new job every 12 seconds, 250 an hour, and $3 billion in value every day. No wonder the guy's filling stadiums. Trump ain't raising the bar, he is the bar. It's payday. Keep America great. Stand with Trump in 2020.